Captain Zexthara had seen many strange things during her 15 years commanding the research vessel. Quantum Dawn, she had watched gas giants birth new moons, observed civilizations rise and fall in accelerated time chambers, and even negotiated peace between species that communicated through electromagnetic pulses. But nothing had prepared her for the sight before her. A human sat cross-legged on the pristine white floor of the ship's main laboratory, making soft cooing sounds at a small, furry creature curled in his lap. The creature appeared to be sleeping, its tiny chest rising and falling in a peaceful rhythm. Occasionally, it would emit a soft rumbling sound that seemed to please the human immensely. "This is your companion?" Zexthara asked, her 4 eyes focusing independently on different aspects of the scene. Her translator struggled with the human concept, settling on the closest Veltar equivalent of bonded servant. Dr. James Mitchell looked up from scratching behind the creature's ears. His face carried the easy smile that had made him popular among the crew during his 3-month stay aboard their ship. "This is Luna. She's my cat." The word cat didn't translate at all, causing a brief static burst from the universal communicator. Zexthara's head tilted, a gesture that indicated confusion among her people. "Your ... cat?" "My pet," James clarified, though this translation came through equally garbled. "My companion animal? We keep them for friendship and comfort." Science Officer Krolvin, who had been silently observing from the corner, stepped forward. His insectoid features were rigid with what could only be described as professional skepticism. "You are saying this creature serves no productive function aboard your vessels?" "Well, she catches mice sometimes," James replied, continuing to stroke Luna's soft orange fur. "And she's excellent company during long voyages. Aren't you, girl?" Luna opened one green eye, assessed the gathered aliens with the supreme indifference that only cats could muster, and promptly returned to her nap. Zex single quotes tit ar exchanged glances with her science officer. In their culture, every creature aboard a ship served a specific purpose. Their own companion species, the hivelets, functioned as living computers, processing complex calculations through their networked consciousness. The thought of keeping an animal purely for emotional satisfaction was alien to them. "How large does this ... grow?" Krolvin inquired, making notes on his datapad with rapid, precise movements. "Luna's about average size. Maybe 8 pounds when she's not being lazy about her diet?" James grinned as Luna's tail twitched at the implied criticism. 8 of your pounds, Krolvin calculated quickly, equals approximately 3.6 standard weight units. Curious, what defensive capabilities does it possess? James paused in his petting. Defensive? Well, she's got claws and teeth. Pretty sharp ones, actually. And she's quick when she wants to be. Claws? Zexthara leaned forward, suddenly interested. Her species had evolved from ambush predators, and the concept of retractable weapons intrigued her. Here, I'll show you. James gently took one of Luna's front paws and carefully extended her claws. 5 curved, needle-sharp points emerged from what had appeared to be soft, harmless paw pads. The effect on the alien scientists was immediate and dramatic. Krolvin's datapad clattered to the floor as his multiple arms recoiled. Zexthara's 4 eyes went wide, and she instinctively stepped backward, her hand moving toward the emergency alarm. Fascinating, breathed Dr. Yulanara, the ship's cinebiologist who had been quietly recording everything. Her squid-like tendrils writhed with excitement, a concealed weapon system integrated into locomotive appendages. The human carries an armed creature. She's not armed, James protested, allowing Luna's claws to retract. These are just normal cat claws. All cats have them. All? Krolvin retrieved his datapad with shaking hands. How many of these cats exist on your world? James shrugged. Maybe 600 million as pets. Plus all the wild ones. Cats are everywhere on Earth. The silence that followed was profound. Zexthara felt a chill run through her usually warm-blooded system. You're telling us that your planet harbors 600 million armed predators as companions? I wouldn't call them armed, James said, laughing at what he assumed was a translation error. They're just cats. Most of them spend their days sleeping in sunny spots and demanding food. Luna chose that moment to stretch, extending all four legs and displaying every claw simultaneously. The unconscious threat display caused Krolvin to trigger the room's defensive barriers, which hummed to life around the examination table. "Krolvin, what are you doing?" James asked, noticing the energy shields for the first time. "Security protocols," the science officer replied tersely. "We must determine if this creature poses a threat to ship operations." Dr. Yelenara had recovered her composure and was studying Luna with professional interest. The specimen appears to be a sophisticated ambush predator. Note the forward-facing eyes indicating a hunter's stereoscopic vision. The retractable claws suggest adaptation for both climbing and combat. The silence of its movement implies stealth capabilities. "She's a house cat," James insisted, growing frustrated. "Look, watch this." He reached into his jacket pocket and produced a small, colorful object. "Luna, want to play?" The transformation was instantaneous. Luna's eyes snapped open, pupils dilating as they locked onto the feathered toy. Her body shifted from relaxed pet to coiled predator in a heartbeat. She dropped into a hunting crouch, tail twitching, muscles bunched beneath her fur. "By the void," Zexthara whispered. James tossed the toy across the room. Luna exploded into motion, covering the distance in 3 powerful leaps. She snatched the feather from midair, landed with perfect balance, and proceeded to kill it with swift, efficient strikes. "Incredible reflexes," Dr. Yelenara muttered, recording frantically. "Combat-grade response time. Look at the precision of those strikes." Krolvin was backing toward the door. "Captain, I recommend we contact Galactic Security. The humans may be violating interspecies weapon transportation treaties." "She's not a weapon," James exclaimed, scooping up Luna, who was now purring with satisfaction over her successful hunt. "She's my pet. She sleeps on my bed and brings me dead mice as presents." "Dead mice?" Zexthara's translator was working overtime now. "Well, yeah. It's instinct. Cats are natural hunters. On Earth, they keep down rodent populations. They're actually really useful for pest control on ships and farms." The aliens processed this information with growing alarm. A predator that hunted autonomously, required no direct commands, and operated on pure instinct? The implications were staggering. "How do you control it?" Krolvin asked, his voice tight with concern. James scratched under Luna's chin, eliciting a deep purr. "You don't really control cats. They kind of do their own thing. That's part of their charm." "Uncontrolled autonomous weapons platform," Dr. Yelenara noted grimly. "She's not autonomous weapons anything," James said, his patience finally wearing thin. "She's a cat. A normal, everyday Earth cat. Every human family has at least one." This revelation hit the alien scientists like a physical blow. Zexthara felt her knees weaken. Every human family? Most, anyway. Cats and dogs are the most common pets. Some people prefer birds or fish or reptiles. Reptiles? Krolvin's datapad slipped from his trembling hands again. Dr. Yelenara had gone very still, her tendrils pale with shock. "Captain, we need to reassess our understanding of human military capabilities immediately." "Why?" James asked, genuinely confused by their reactions. "What does Luna have to do with military anything?" Zexthara looked at the small predator in the human's arms. Luna had returned to her peaceful state, green eyes half closed, purring contentedly. To human eyes, she was an adorable pet. To alien eyes trained to recognize predator species, she was a perfectly designed killing machine. "Dr. Mitchell," Zexthara said carefully, "perhaps you could tell us more about these other animals you mentioned, these dogs?" James brightened immediately. "Oh, you'd love dogs. They're way more social than cats. My neighbor has this German shepherd named Rex who's incredibly smart. He can track scents for miles, take down a full-grown man if he has to, and he's absolutely loyal to his family." The color drained from Krolvin's exoskeleton. "Take down a full-grown man? Well, police dogs are trained for that. Rex is just a family pet, but the breed was originally developed for guarding and protection." Most dogs were bred for specific jobs: hunting, herding, guarding, fighting, fighting? Dr. Yulanara's voice had become a whisper. Historically, sure. But now they're mostly companions. Though I guess some of the working dogs still do their original jobs. Search and rescue, police work, military operations. Zexthara felt the room spinning slightly. Military operations? Oh yeah, military working dogs are incredible. They can detect explosives, track enemies, attack on command. There's this one breed, Belgian Malinois. They're so good that Special Forces units often deploy with them. A single dog can clear an entire building or take down multiple armed hostiles. The silence that followed was broken only by Luna's gentle purring. "Captain," Krolvin whispered, "we need to contact the High Council immediately. The humans haven't just weaponized one species. They've weaponized their entire planet's ecosystem." "They're not weaponized," James protested weakly, though he was beginning to sense the depth of their misunderstanding. Doctor. 3 hours later, the main conference room of the Quantum Dawn had been transformed into what looked like a war council. Holographic displays showed detailed analyses of Earth's animal species, while data streams scrolled across multiple screens faster than most organic eyes could follow. The ship's entire senior staff had been called in for what Captain Zexthara had designated a Code Orange, a potential threat assessment requiring immediate TTENTIO, and Dr. James Mitchell sat at one end of the elongated conference table. Luna still curled contentedly in his lap. He had spent the better part of 3 hours answering increasingly alarmed questions about Earth's fauna, and he was beginning to understand why his hosts seemed so disturbed. "Let me ensure I understand correctly," said Commander Volter. The ship's tactical officer, whose heavily armored carapace made him look like a walking tank. "You're telling us that humans share their living spaces with creatures that can strike faster than most trained soldiers, possess natural weapons, and hunt autonomously?" "When you put it that way, it sounds worse than it is," James replied, stroking Luna's fur. "But yes, I suppose that's technically accurate." Dr. Yulanara had been silent for the past hour, her tendrils writhing as she processed data from Earth's public networks. "I've been reviewing your planet's biological databases," she announced, her voice tight with controlled panic. "The situation is far worse than we initially understood." A new hologram materialized above the conference table, showing a three-dimensional map of Earth's continents. Red dots began appearing across the landmasses, spreading like a plague until the entire planet appeared to be infected. These markers represent the distribution of what humans call domestic dogs, Dr. Yulanara continued. "Population estimate, 900 million individuals." Commander Volter leaned forward, studying the display. "Show me their capabilities." The hologram shifted to display a collection of dog breeds. A German Shepherd materialized first, its statistics scrolling alongside the image. Bite force, 238 pounds per square inch. Top speed, 30 miles per hour. Hearing range, up to 65,000 hertz. Scent detection, up to 100,000 times more sensitive than human baseline. "That's just Max from my neighborhood," James interjected. "He mostly fetches tennis balls and barks at the mailman." The display cycled to the next breed. Siberian Husky, endurance, capable of running 100 miles per day in subarctic conditions, while pulling heavy loads. Cold resistance, operational down to -50 degrees Celsius. Krolvin's multiple arms twitched nervously. Environmental adaptation for hostile planet operations. "They were bred to pull sleds," James protested. "It's transportation, not military operations." "Belgian Malinois," the display continued. Reflexes, 0.03-second response time. Jump capability, up to 12 feet vertical. Training applications, explosives detection, enemy tracking, assault operations. Commander Volter stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "Captain, these aren't pets. These are biological weapons platforms." "No, they're not," James said firmly. "They're working dogs." Yes, some of them work with police and military, but most of them live in suburban homes with families and children. Children? Dr. Yelenara's tendrils went completely white. Humans expose their young to these predators? Dogs are great with kids, James replied, growing frustrated with their misconceptions. They're protective, loyal, and gentle. A good family dog would die before letting harm come to a child in its pack. The silence that followed was somehow more ominous than their previous reactions. Captain Zexthara spoke slowly, as if testing each word. Did you just say that these creatures form pack bonds with human families, including defensive protocols for human offspring? Well, yes, James said uncertainly. That's kind of the point of having a family dog. Commander Volter began pacing, his heavy footsteps echoing in the conference room. Captain, we're looking at a species that has weaponized pack bonding. Every human family unit is protected by dedicated combat animals that have been bred and trained for thousands of years. Thousands of years? Krulvin squeaked. James nodded absently. Dogs have been with humans for maybe 15,000 years. Cats for about 9,000. We've been living together for most of recorded history. Dr. Yelenara was scrolling through more data, her movements becoming increasingly frantic. The breeding programs, she whispered. Look at these breeding programs. New images appeared on the display. Rottweilers, Mastiffs, Pit Bulls, each with their statistics scrolling past in an endless stream of concerning numbers. Rottweiler, bite force 328 psi. Mastiff, weight up to 343 pounds, historical use in warfare. American Pit Bull Terrier, jaw muscle density 300% above baseline, bred specifically for combat applications. Those aren't combat applications anymore, James said desperately. Pit bulls are family pets now. They're actually called nanny dogs because they're so good with children. Nanny dogs? Captain Zexthara's translator struggled with the concept. They babysit kids. They're protective and gentle and, they're trained child guardians, Commander Volter interrupted grimly. Autonomous security systems for human offspring. James opened his mouth to argue, then closed it again. When explained that way, it did sound rather militaristic. Luna chose that moment to wake up from her nap. She stretched luxuriously, jumped down from James's lap, and began exploring the conference room with typical feline curiosity. The assembled aliens tracked her movement with the intensity of prey animals watching a predator. Observe the reconnaissance pattern, Dr. Yelenara noted quietly. Silent movement, systematic area coverage. Threat assessment protocols. She's just exploring, James said weakly. Luna approached Commander Volter's chair and rubbed against one of his armored legs, purring loudly. The massive tactical officer froze completely, not daring to move. It's making contact, he whispered. She likes you, James explained. The purring means she's happy. Sonic emission, Dr. Yelenara recorded. Possible psychological warfare application. Note how it induces calm response in target species. Luna, completely oblivious to the existential crisis she was causing, jumped onto the conference table and began walking toward the holographic display. As she passed through the light beams, her shadow fell across the projected images of various dog breeds. Stealth capabilities confirmed? Krulvin muttered. Captain Zexthara had been quiet throughout this exchange, but now she stood and walked to the main communications console. I need to send a priority message to the Galactic Council, she announced. About what? James asked, though he was beginning to suspect he knew. We need to completely reassess humanity's threat classification, she replied grimly. When the first contact team filed their reports, they classified humans as a level 3 civilization, technologically advanced but militarily moderate. Based on what we've learned today, that assessment was catastrophically incorrect. James felt a chill run down his spine. What kind of classification are you thinking now? Level 7. Commander Volter answered before the captain could speak. Advanced predator species with weaponized ecosystem. We're not predators, James protested. We're omnivores who happen to like animals. Dr. Yelenara looked up from her data analysis. Dr. Mitchell, I've been studying your planet's history through your public databases. Humans have systematically bred and modified hundreds of species for various purposes. You've created animals specifically designed for hunting, fighting, guarding, and killing. This represents the most sophisticated biological weapons program in known galactic history. Those aren't weapons programs, James said desperately. They're agricultural practices. Selective breeding for useful traits? Useful traits, Krulvin repeated slowly. Like enhanced aggression, improved killing efficiency, and absolute loyalty to human commanders. Luna had found a datapad someone had left on the table and was now batting at it playfully, her claws occasionally extending to grip the smooth surface. Each casual display of those needle-sharp weapons made the alien observers flinch. There's something else, Dr. Yelenara said quietly. I found records of creatures you haven't mentioned yet. Humans also keep. Snakes? James nodded. Some people do. Snakes make interesting pets if you know how to care for them. Venomous species? Well, some people do keep venomous snakes, but that requires special permits and training. Spiders? Tarantulas are pretty popular, actually. They're low maintenance and large birds of prey. Falconry is an ancient human tradition. Hawks, eagles, falcons, with each species James mentioned, the alien observers seemed to sink deeper into their chairs. Commander Volter had activated his personal defense shields and was regarding Luna with the respect one might show a live grenade. Let me understand this completely, Captain Zexthara said, her voice deadly calm. Humans share their homes not only with pack-hunting predators and autonomous killing machines, but also with venomous creatures and aerial assault platforms? When you put it that way, how else should we put it? She demanded. Dr. Mitchell, your species has turned pet ownership into a form of biological warfare. You surround yourselves with creatures that most civilized species would classify as dangerous wildlife. Luna, having grown bored with the datapad, jumped down from the table and began grooming herself with the thorough efficiency that only cats could manage. The aliens watched this routine maintenance with the emergency klaxon that suddenly blared through the quantum dawn sent every crew member into immediate action. Red lights flashed in sequence along the corridors, and the ship's automated systems began sealing bulkheads as standard crisis protocol. Captain Zexthara was on her feet instantly, her 4 eyes focusing independently on different status displays. Report. Massive energy surge detected off the port bow, called Navigation Officer Trillax from the bridge through the CUM system. Unknown vessel decloaking. Configuration matches Carthek's raider class. The blood drained from Zexthara's face. The Cartheks were notorious throughout the galaxy as ruthless pirates, who took prisoners only to sell them in the Outer Rim slave markets. Their ships were fast, heavily armed, and crewed by some of the most vicious predators known to galactic civilization. Battle stations, she commanded, then turned to James. Dr. Mitchell, you need to get to the emergency shelter immediately. Take your ... companion. And Luna had already reacted to the alarm. Her posture had changed from relaxed house cat to something far more primal. Her ears were flat against her head, her pupils had dilated to black discs, and a low growling sound was emanating from her throat that raised the hair on every human's arms. What's wrong with it? Commander Volter demanded, backing away from the clearly agitated cat. She senses danger, James replied grimly, scooping Luna into his arms. Cats have incredible hearing and sense of vibration. She knows something's wrong. The ship shuddered as the first energy blast struck their shields. Through the observation windows they could see the sleek, predatory outline of a Carthex vessel moving in for attack position. Shields at 78% and falling, came the report from the bridge. They're targeting our weapon systems. Dr. Yelenara was checking her emergency kit with nervous efficiency. Captain Carthex raiders typically board disabled vessels. If they break through, she didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone knew what happened to prisoners taken by the Carthex. Another impact rocked the ship, stronger this time. The lights flickered, and somewhere in the distance they could hear the sound of metal groaning under stress. "Shields at 45%, the bridge reported. "Weapon systems offline? They're moving into boarding position." Luna's growling had intensified, and James could feel her muscles coiling beneath her fur. Every instinct she possessed was telling her that danger was approaching, and her response was purely predatory. "The creature is becoming aggressive," Commander Volter observed, his hand moving toward his sidearm. "She's protecting me," James corrected. "It's instinct." Captain Zexthara was coordinating defensive measures when the ship's computer announced the words everyone had been dreading. "Hull breach detected. Unauthorized boarding in progress." The sound of weapons fire echoed through the corridors, getting closer with each passing moment. The Quantum Dawn had a small security force, but they were scientists and explorers, not soldiers. Against Carthex raiders, they wouldn't stand much of a chance. "Emergency shelter is compromised," came the frantic report from Trelax. "Raiders have breached the main corridor. Security teams are falling back." James looked around at the terrified faces of the alien crew. These beings had shown him nothing but kindness during his stay aboard their ship, and now they were about to be captured or killed by pirates. The thought of Dr. Yulanara or Gentle Krulvin in Carthex slave markets made his blood run cold. "Is there another way out of here?" he asked. "Maintenance shafts," Zexthara replied tersely, "but they lead to the engineering section." "That's probably where the raiders are heading." The sound of weapons fire was getting closer, accompanied now by the terrifying roars and clicking sounds that Carthex made when they were hunting. Through the conference room's internal sensors, they could see dark shapes moving through the ship's corridors with predatory efficiency. Luna had gone completely rigid in James's arms, every muscle tensed for action. Her green eyes were fixed on the conference room door, and her pupils were so dilated they looked like black holes. "The creature appears to be tracking the intruders," Commander Volter noted with professional interest despite the circumstances. "She can hear them," James confirmed. "Probably smell them too." Dr. Yulanara looked up from her frantic preparations. "Dr. Mitchell, you should know that Carthex raiders have enhanced predatory senses. They hunt by sound and movement. Your companion's agitation might attract them." "Luna can take care of herself," James said firmly. The door to the conference room suddenly exploded inward as a massive shape filled the doorway. The Carthex raider stood nearly 7 feet tall, its insectoid body covered in natural armor plating. Multiple arms held various weapons, and its mandibles clicked menacingly as it surveyed the room full of potential prisoners. The alien crew members froze in terror, but James felt Luna transform in his arms. What had been a domestic house cat suddenly became something far more ancient and deadly. She erupted from his grip with a yowl that sounded like a challenge to battle. The Carthex raider barely had time to register the small orange blur before Luna hit its face with the force of a missile. Her claws extended fully as she landed, finding gaps in the armor plating around the creature's eyes. Her teeth sank into its neck while her rear claws began the devastating bunny kick that domestic cats used to disembowel prey. The raider's roar of pain and surprise echoed through the ship as it staggered backward, trying to dislodge the small predator that had attached itself to its head. Its weapons fire went wild, scarring the walls and ceiling as it clawed at Luna, but Luna was faster than the alien could track. She released her hold, dropped to the floor, and immediately launched herself at the creature's legs, targeting the joints in its armor. Her claws found purchase in the gaps, and she began climbing the raider like a tree. Leaving deep gouges in the armor plating. 2 more Carthex appeared in the doorway, drawn by their companions' distress calls. They raised their weapons toward Luna, but James was already moving. Without conscious thought, he grabbed a heavy data pad from the conference table and hurled it at the nearest raider's weapon, knocking it aside. "Nobody hurts my cat," he snarled. And suddenly the aliens understood why humans had formed bonds with predators, because humans were predators themselves. Luna had reached the first raider's throat again, and this time her bite found something vital. The creature's roars turned to gurgling sounds as it collapsed, its weapons clattering across the floor. The remaining two raiders focused their attention on James, recognizing the greater threat. But they had made a critical error. They had turned their backs on Captain Zexthara and her crew. Zexthara might have been a scientist, but her species hadn't forgotten their predatory roots. She struck the nearest raider from behind with movements that were lightning fast and brutally efficient. Commander Volter's species had evolved from herd animals, but that meant they knew how to defend their groups. His armored carapace made him nearly impervious to the raiders' weapons, and his massive strength allowed him to literally crush their equipment. Even gentle Krulvin joined the fight, his multiple arms allowing him to operate several pieces of equipment simultaneously. Turning the ship's internal systems against the boarders, the battle was over in less than 3 minutes. Luna sat in the middle of the chaos, calmly grooming her fur as if nothing had happened. The Carthax raiders lay motionless around her, their weapons scattered and useless. "By the void," Dr. Yulinara whispered, staring at the destruction. The creature, it didn't just defend itself. It coordinated with Dr. Mitchell. James knelt down and extended his hand toward Luna, who immediately trotted over and began rubbing against his fingers, purring loudly. "She protected us," he said simply. "That's what family does." Commander Volter was examining the fallen raiders with professional interest. The combat efficiency was extraordinary. The creature targeted weak points in their armor with surgical precision. "Luna's just a cat," James replied, scratching behind her ears. "But she's my cat." And she knew these things were threatening her family. Captain Zexthara stood among the wreckage of her conference room. Her understanding of humanity fundamentally changed. "Dr. Mitchell, we owe you and Luna our lives." "You don't owe us anything," James said, scooping Luna back into his arms. "We're all crew on this ship. We take care of each other." Dr. Yulinara was recording everything with shaking hands. The level of coordination, the protective instincts, the tactical awareness. "Captain, we need to completely revise our understanding of human-animal relationships." "Yes," Zexthara agreed, "but not in the way we originally thought." She activated the ship's communication system. "Bridge, this is the captain. Raider threat neutralized. Begin damage assessment and secure the remaining intruders." "Understood, Captain." "How did you manage to stop them?" Zexthara looked at James and Luna, who had returned to her normal appearance of a sleepy house cat. "We had help from Dr. Mitchell's family." 3 hours later, the Quantum Dawn was secure, and the surviving Carthax raiders were in the ship's detention cells. Captain Zexthara sat in her ready room, composing a report to the Galactic Council that would change everything. "Personal log," Captain Zexthara recording. "Today we learned that our initial assessment of human pets was both completely wrong and completely right. They are indeed livin'.